Hello everyone, Jackie Edwards here. Thank you so much for joining me today on this fabulous day. Now, first of all, I need to say, oops, I totally didn't come and do a video yesterday. Just completely forgot. It was one of those days where I got up in the morning and I haven't been sleeping really well because I've got this cough that won't go away. I've just ordered some antibiotics, so it should get better. But I got up in the morning and I was like, okay, here's all the things I'm going to do. And I had a plan for coming on here and chatting with everybody. And then I had this idea. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need the builder to we've been struggling with what to do with my dog. Lives outside and he's more of a guard dog. So his job is to bark when people come to our farm that he doesn't know. But that also is hard when we have builders and guests that are scared of dogs come. So he used to love to go in my car. So when people are around that we didn't want him to bark at, he used to go sit in my car and it was his happy place. He would just almost knock me over trying to get into my car. He was so happy to be in there. Well, then I have a new car now and he doesn't fit. So I was like, oh, I've got this great idea of where we can build a beautiful pen for him that he won't be able to see everything. And so then I had to make that happen really quick yesterday afternoon, and I got all sucked up into this whole project, and then I never came and made a video yesterday. So, oops. And then I was going to make one while I was cutting the grass. So again, I live on a farm with all these fields, so it takes me hours and hours and hours to cut grass. So I kept thinking about it while I was cutting grass. I was like, I'll just do a video. And then I would get sucked back into the audiobook I was listening to and never did it. So, shit happens. Don't worry about it. Basically, we all make mistakes, we all forget things, shit goes wrong that we didn't plan. That's fucking life. So anyways, I'm here today. Today I want to talk about thoughts. So I had a really, really fabulous conversation with my brother-in-law actually the other day. And we were talking about our thoughts. And so I've seen him really struggling to agree with the concept or just even take it on that we can change how we think about ourselves and we can change what we think. And I was just like, oh, why can't you figure this out? And I'm like, oh my God, I used to think the same thing 10 years ago as well. I would have actually, to be honest, I would have never thought anything about my thoughts. I'd have just thought these are my thoughts, they're there. So it's stuff we were talking about how he thinks his job is boring. And I was like, well, why would you want to choose to think that thought? I was like, it doesn't really do anything for you. He's like, well, but it's just the truth. So, of course I think it. It's but even, first of all, it's not the truth because, not everybody that would ever do his job is going to think his job is boring. So, that doesn't mean it's an absolute truth. A judge in a court of law would be like, dude, confirmed, your job is boring. So, it's I think those kind of tricky thoughts that get us that we're but this is just true. So of course I'm going to think it. But then what is true? And now even if we said, well, okay, so it's true because he's bored by his job. Is that a helpful thought to think? And so maybe you hate your job or whatever. Is that a helpful thought to keep thinking it? And he's like, well, that's just what I think. But my next step is that, well, why don't you just stop thinking that? Because it's not a helpful thought. There's no good comes of thinking my job is boring. Unless, you want to use that, propel yourself to get a different job. But he actually really likes his job. It's just boring. So he actually likes what he does. He gets to work from home. He gets paid. It's all the things he wants from a job. He doesn't want to go get a different job because he actually likes his job. He just thinks it's boring. So having that thought, my job is boring, is super not helpful. It's like me having the thought that, I'm fat and ugly. Or the thought that being fat is bad. Having that thought, not helpful. It's, first of all, not true. Because, it's just not. It's just a thought that we have in our head. And no matter where that thought comes from, you couldn't go to a judge and be like, is fat bad? And they would be like, true, let's put this into the statute books. Fat is bad. But even if we think, well, my brain thinks it, so that kind of makes it true about me, that fat is bad. why would you want to have that thought? Is it helpful in any way? Usually kind of like the guilt and the shame feelings are not going to help us like go out and lose weight. Like, honestly, we've all been there. We've tried to beat ourselves up and guilt ourselves and shame ourselves into losing weight before, and it doesn't happen. So having that thought, fat is bad, is not helpful in any way, shape, or form. Now, it's probably in there because it's a habit. We are in the habit of thinking, my job is boring. We are in the habit of thinking, fat is bad. So every time that thought pops up, it's just there. We acknowledge it as truth, and we move on. Because it's a habit. Now, habits are fucking amazing. Like, our brain is so awesome that it creates habits for us. Because it just makes our lives 100 times easier. Like, when we were learning how to walk, if walking didn't become, like, all the little things that have to happen in our brain to walk, if that didn't become a habit for our brain, like, can you imagine every time we, like, tried to get up, it would be like a toddler getting up for the first time every time again? Because our brain would have to be like, okay, we've got to fire this muscle and this muscle and this muscle, and then we have to do this one and this one and this one, and now remember to breathe. But instead, it just forms a habit. Like, all those little neural pathways and whatever's happening in there, they all just form like, here is the habit of walking. Just like our brain forms those habits of thought. So we might not even know when they happened. So the habit of my job is boring, that could have happened in like his first year of working. It could have even happened before that if he heard somebody else talking constantly about how work is boring. His brain is just like, oh, just got to plant this in here. I've heard it so many times, or I've said it so many times that, okay, job, boring, done. And it just kind of throws it out there whenever it thinks it's ready or necessary, because it's a habit. Same with fat is bad. Honestly, we've been taught that everywhere. Fucking fat phobia, everywhere. Fat is bad, fat is unhealthy. The, obesity pandemic, epidemic, whatever the hell it was, all of that telling us fat is bad. So of course, our brain was like, okay, obviously this is important. We're hearing it constantly. I'll just program a little habit in there to think fat is bad. So that every time you see fat, you think fat is bad. Your brain thinks it's doing a great job. And honestly, it's just doing what it was, like, what its job is. So your brain is doing a great job creating that habit. So we just have to reverse it and break that habit for stuff that's not helpful. And I think that's the key thing that we just never learn, or that we're never taught to do. We never even think about doing. It's like, of course, if our brain can learn these habits, like, we're always taught, here's how to learn habits. It takes 30 days to learn a new habit. If you want to try something, do it with another habit you've already got. So if you want to, like, I don't know, do stretches. So one of my stretches that my massage therapist tells me to do to kind of, like, make my ankles better is, she's like, well, if you just do it when you brush your teeth, because you brush your teeth all the time, so you've already got the habit of brushing my teeth, and if I just add that in there, then it's easy to create a new habit. So we're all about creating new habits. But we don't really apply that to our thoughts. We don't really apply it to, like, breaking habits either. So, of course, because we just don't think about it at all, honestly. Like, they don't teach us this shit in school. So, when you're thinking those thoughts, or even if you just, like, identify it a little bit, it's not going to happen instantly. That you're just going to be able to be like, I will never, ever again think fat is bad. Like, that would be awesome if that happens, but usually with habits, it takes some time to unwind them. But once you become conscious of it, and once you become conscious of those thoughts that maybe you don't want to have anymore, maybe they're not helping you, you can basically just start to notice them. So that's the first step, is if you notice those thoughts popping up. So next time you walk by a mirror and think, oh, I'm fat, fat is bad. And it might happen quite a few times that you don't even notice having that thought. But you'll find yourself catching it more and more often and think, oh, there it is. There's that thought again. Oh, I don't want to think that thought. And the more often you kind of catch yourself saying it and be like, nope, brain error, and just kind of shake yourself out of it, the more you're loosening up the habit in your brain, that wiring that says, fat is bad. And then if you see yourself be like, no, fat is not bad, your brain is like, oh, fat's not bad. But that habit is going to be strong because it's whirled over a lifetime. Just like the habit of my job is boring. So every time you think that, just think, oh no, that's not a helpful thought. You don't even have to think that's not true. Just be like, that's not a helpful thought. And every time it pops up, just think that's not a helpful thought. Even thoughts about like, oh, I don't like that person. I don't like to go for walks. Anything that isn't helpful to it. We have so many, many thousands and thousands and thousands of thoughts every day. Thoughts that we just believe are true and that have to be there and that are there for a reason. They're not. Our brain is just like sprinkling them out there. It's like, ooh, here's a little habit. Here's a little thought we haven't had for the last 20 minutes. Here, I'll sprinkle that back out there. And we can train ourselves not to have the helpful ones. So one of the things I do is I journal every morning. And I'll just kind of write down whatever I'm thinking about, maybe even if it's like a trouble or a struggle that I've been having, or even some positive stuff that I'm having. And I'll just kind of do basically a brain dump. And I'll just like dump all my thoughts on the page, write them out, and then I can have a look and be like, all right, which ones of these are like thoughts versus like which ones of these are like actual truths, like actual circumstances. Like circumstance, I have 2 legs, whatever. I live in a house on a farm. Like that's like a truth. And then all the other little things that are not truths, I can kind of underline them and being like, there's a thought. Do I want to have that thought? Is that thought a helpful thought for me? And just take that little bit of time to think, are these thoughts helpful? Maybe one day I'll journal about, if I had a job, I would journal about my thoughts about my job. For me, it's like my thoughts about, coming here on social media, my thoughts about shopping for new clothes, and just tease out what thoughts are helpful and which thoughts are not so helpful. Because once we know that's a thought that's not helpful, again, it just helps us to notice it when we have it. And when we start to notice it, we can start to say, nope, not true. Nope, brain fart. Nope, brain, stop having that thought. And again, it just wiggles it loose in our brain. And then once we've become aware of it more and more and more, and once we've kind of said, no brain, no brain, no brain, then maybe we can find another thought that we can replace it with. So instead of fat is bad, maybe we can replace that with, every time we look in the mirror and think, oh, my body is strong. My body is beautiful. I have a human body. Whatever it is that's not a not helpful thought. Even if it takes you a little while to get to a helpful thought, you can just have like, I have a human body. That's not really positive or negative, it's just a truth. So that is like a circumstance. I am human, I have a human body. So instead of thinking fat is bad, no, I'm just there. I'm like, yes, I have a human body. Like, there's no arguing that. I'm a human, I have a human body. Human body, not bad, good, not bad, just a human body. And then maybe I can be like, oh, I've got a good body, a strong body, a powerful body. I've got, a healthy body. I've got whatever. And you can move towards those thoughts and start playing around with those and get to more helpful thoughts. So we don't need to stay stuck in unhelpful patterns in our brains. It is 1,000 million billion % possible to change our thoughts, to change the way our brain is wired, to change what we think about everything. And I think that is the most powerful thing that we have in our lives, is that ability to change our thoughts. And it may not happen overnight, depending on which thoughts you're trying to change, but it's 100% possible to change them. So we don't have to go around thinking, fat is bad, my job is boring, my life sucks. Why would we want to think those thoughts when we don't have to? And we don't have to think them. It's totally optional. They're totally not true. We can totally find a different way. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to bring them to the consciousness and to wiggle them free and find something better and more helpful to think. So I'm sure talk about this again in the future because it's such a powerful and important part of my life. And again, it's something I do every day is I play with my thoughts and I look at what I'm thinking and see how I can make my brain really, really work for me just by changing my thoughts. And I'll share, God, it's Friday already, isn't it? It's so crazy. I've shared about how I decided that I was a rock star before. I've shared that in a previous video. I've got the most amazing story from the other weekend when I was in Denver. That was like how I manifested actually being a fucking rock star. It was crazy, mind-blowing, amazing. And I will save that for next week because I've already been talking too long here. So have a fucking amazing weekend and be ready for next week. And I will teach you how to manifest whatever thoughts you want. That is how fucking powerful our brains are. Because I became a rock star. and it was awesome and really scary all at the same time. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you again next time.